Tonight's story is kind of like the Salem witch trials and the Hatfields and McCoys all rolled up into one. Now, I'm talking about the Witch of Blue Ridge. This happened outside of Ellijay, Georgia, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And it happened when a woman named Elizabeth Bradley, who was half Creek Indian, said to be a healer and a medicine woman, she had two daughters. And these two daughters married into two different families. One of them married a Tilly, and the other one married a Stanley. The only problem with this was that these families had been embroiled in a bitter feud for some time, for some years already. And these marriages caused the tensions eventually to boil over. So one Sunday morning, members of the Stanley family did ride to a church where the Tillys were holding service, and they fired on it. And by the time the smoke cleared in that incident, there had been some casualties on the Tilly side. And one of those casualties was Elizabeth Bradley's daughter. The one that had married a Tilly was lost in that incident. Well, of course, as these things go, the Tillys sought to exact vengeance on the Stanleys after this. So they snuck to the Stanley settlement later that night. And at the end of that incident, some members of the Stanley family were lost. Well, shortly after this, Elizabeth's other daughter, the one who had been married to a Stanley, she and her child were lost in childbirth. She had been heavily pregnant when all this was unfolding, and both she and her unborn child were lost. Now, of course, Elizabeth was devastated over the loss of both of her daughters and her unborn grandchild, and she spoke a curse on both of the families for their senseless feud, and she spoke a curse on their unborn children. And sure enough, for the next year, babies on both sides were either stillborn or they lived a couple of days and then they were sadly lost too. Well, this drove members of both families basically to form a posse, and they drug Elizabeth Bradley from her home in front of her family, and they drug her to the local cemetery where there was a large tree, and they exacted vigilante justice at the end of a rope for Elizabeth. And not before Elizabeth uttered another curse. She said that she would come back. And oddly enough, babies on both sides were still being lost. So they blamed this on Elizabeth's sister-in-law. It said that a year to the day that they drug her to the same tree in the graveyard, and they also exacted vigilante justice on her in the same form. They had their own witch trials. Now, this varies from other similar folklore or legends is because there's a lot of physical evidence to support this. If you go to this cemetery, not only will you find the tree where she is said to have met her end, there is a headstone and a footstone beneath it, and they are faced the opposite direction from all the other gravestones, which is customary to bury witches facing the other direction of all the other headstones. And not only that, you can also find her sister-in-law's marker there. Now, her sister-in-law's marker has a cross on it, and it is not buried in the opposite direction. Or it's not oriented in the opposite direction. It's actually got a cross on it, and it's oriented the same way all the others are. But they say that's because the sister-in-law was not of Indian descent, so they said that she was under the spell of Elizabeth or under the influence of Elizabeth. So she got a proper Christian burial. And not only is there that evidence, there are tiny field stones marking the resting places of all those stillborns and all those newborns. There are little field stones, a bunch of them. Now, I'm not going to name the exact name of the establishment because there has been vandalism and it is private property, so I'm just not going to get anyone in trouble. But you can read up about this. Now, not only this, but it is said that to this day, sometimes you can still see Elizabeth and her sister-in-law wandering among the tombstones. And if you're brave enough or perhaps foolish enough and go close to Elizabeth's grave, that sometimes people feel grabbing or tugging at their legs, like someone or something is trying to pull them under. So that's been the story for tonight. That's been Jay's Haunted Appalachia for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have your own true paranormal story from Appalachia, I'd love to hear it. My email is visible in my bio. You can also message me direct. And I want to thank you guys again for all your kindness and support. And in the comments and everything, you're always very kind and supportive. If you want to do anything to help the channel, please share it. Share it and repost it. Share it to your story. Like, comment, follow, all of that, please. I'd really like to see the channel grow and become all that it can be. But again, that's been Jay's Haunted Appalachia for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep Appalachia haunted, y'all.
Someone emailed me and said that something was mimicking their 1-year-old brother, and that wasn't the only thing either. This story is just a mixture of horror. The story is long and it's detailed, and the scariest parts are at the end. And I hate to do that to you guys. I never do that to you guys, but it's just how the story was sent to me. This happened in Saudi Arabia, and this girl did tell me I could use her name. Her name is Cha, and she will be tagged in the description. So it started in 2023 when she moved to Saudi Arabia for her dad's work. So they were looking at schools for her and her siblings. She was 16 years old. Her siblings were 3 and 13. So the compound that they found offered a house to stay in until the house that they were renting was redesigned. It took about 3 weeks, and they agreed to move into a house that was right at the side of the compound. Now, the house that they were moving into was really old and creepy, and it had some weird stains in the house, and it also had writing on the walls from the previous owners that were renting it. The moment that they walk in, they put their bags down, and her dad walks over to the radio, and he starts working on the radio signal. So this house is furnished, right? So her mom and her are sitting in the kitchen chairs while her dad is working on the radio signal. The moment that her dad opens up the radio, there's like this strange noise coming out of it. It almost sounded like two people talking at the same time. The only thing is both voices weren't coming from the radio. One was coming from the radio, but the other was directly in Cha's ear. So she's kind of looking around, like thinking that everyone else heard it too, but no one is showing any signs of concern except for her mother. Her mom then looks at her and just goes, just be quiet. So she was kind of like, okay. After that, things are okay. They unpack their bags. They're looking around. As she's looking around, she finds these paintings, and these paintings are very unsettling to her. She said that they had faces on them, but it was strange because it would just be like an ordinary picture of like a rose. There wasn't actual pictures of faces, but she could see faces in the pictures. Well, at this point, she decides that she's just going to ignore this because she's starting to get freaked out. She doesn't really understand the voice things, the paintings now, and the radio. Well, her and her mom decide that they're going to walk upstairs. So they walk upstairs, and when they get upstairs, they see this couch, and it's like this big pink couch. When suddenly her mom looks at her and is like, don't go anywhere near that couch. And she's like, what? And she's like, I don't want you to go anywhere near that couch. I'm getting a bad feeling from it. Just leave the couch alone. And she's just kind of like, okay. But right as her mom is saying this, she feels something staring at her from the corner of her eye, but she looks and there's nothing there. She again just thinks that she's being paranoid. So some time passes, and it's now later on in the night, and she is trying to get settled in still. She's feeling very weird about the house. She's even feeling very unsettled about the room that she's in. But again, she decides to ignore it, and she drifts off to sleep. She wakes up in the middle of the night, and she cannot move a muscle. And there is someone breathing directly on her face. She said that it felt cold. She then opens up her eyes, and she looks at the wall, and she doesn't see anything, but she still cannot move, and she's terrified. So she starts praying in her head, and then she starts trying to move her mouth. And as soon as she starts to try to move her mouth, her body is suddenly able to move. But she sits up, and all of a sudden she cannot breathe. She said that this went on for nights. The same exact thing would happen. She would go to bed, she would wake up in the middle of the night, she would wake up to something breathing on her face, she would open her eyes, look at the wall, and then she would sit up as soon as she was out of sleep paralysis, and she could not breathe. She said that at one time she even woke up to her luggage being in a different part of her room than she had left it. She said that the exact amount of time that this went on for was 5 nights. And during this time that this was happening to her, apparently her father was sleep talking a lot, and he was saying things like, please forgive me, don't, stop it. in the middle of the night. And her mom would wake up to this and wonder what the hell he was doing and just be sitting there as he was talking in his sleep, saying the strangest things. And he had never done this before. But 2 weeks later, things get weirder. So her and her siblings are in her house and they're just hanging out when suddenly they hear the door just slam shut. It just slams shut, and it's the door to their shared bathroom. They walk over to the door and the door is completely locked. They cannot open it, and they did not lock it, and they did not shut it. They cannot get this door open. They actually had to wait for their father to get home, and thank God nobody was in that bathroom because they would have been locked in the bathroom. So that freaks her out, and she knows at this point that something is going on. After the whole door debacle, she decides that she's going to go into her room. As soon as she walks into her room, she notices something on her curtains that she had not noticed previously. There's these weird brownish, reddish, she said kind of orangish stains on her curtains. She said they looked old and new. She immediately starts thinking blood, right? So she starts freaking out. She starts taking pictures and she runs downstairs and she shows her mom the picture. Her mom loses it over this. Her mom is like, someone was murdered here. I know it. Like, obviously her mom is having these weird feelings about the house. She was from the second she walked into the house. So she's freaking out about this. So she goes over to the father and she shows the father the pictures. And she's like, something happened here. And her father, apparently, who has been pretty dismissive this entire time, is being dismissive again. Her mom is adamant. She's like, no, go upstairs and check the curtains right now. So he walks up the stairs. He walks into her room. He goes and looks at the curtains. And she said that he just stopped and stared at them. Didn't say a word, just like stared at the curtains, but he says nothing. And then he just walks out of the room. Here's the crazy part. She goes outside, right? She goes outside and she looks at the backyard sometime later and she sees this spot outside and there's grass, green grass everywhere, except for this one big patch of dirt. Literally, she said it looks like a grave site. It looked like a grave site without a gravestone. It's the only part of the yard that does not have grass growing on it. So she's just like, okay, that is weird. And she has a theory. She thinks that somebody was in that house and that they were buried in the backyard. They're about to leave this house anyway because their house is now ready. And so she's thinking in her head, okay, I'm about to leave. This mess is going to all be behind me. She could not have been more wrong. She would experience some of the scariest things that she had ever experienced in her entire life. So their house is ready to move in and there's a maid that helped them move everything out and everything into the new house. So she's upstairs in her siblings' room and she's taking out the bed frame so that she can get to the bed covers. Apparently there was bed covers like below the bed frame. As soon as she goes to grab them, something shoves her. She said that her knee hit the hardwood floor and her jaw just smashed on the corner of the table. She said that this hurt so bad she was bruised for weeks. Fast forward, it gets so much worse. So the whole incident with her being pushed, later on that night, she goes to bed. She wakes up in the middle of the night and she realizes that she's paralyzed again. And she's like, what the fuck? Why? She opens her eyes, she looks to the right of her, and standing right in front of her face is a goat man and then a woman wearing pink. And they are talking to one another, and she cannot understand a word they are saying. She is terrified at this point. When suddenly, after they're done talking at this point, the goat man takes his hoof, puts it on her neck and smashes down and starts twisting her neck. She said at this point, she just starts praying in her head. But immediately when she started praying, this thing starts letting go, but it starts to get angry and she can visibly see this. And then it just disappears. Somehow she goes back to sleep. Of course she does. You guys are insane. Well, the night is not over for her because she wakes up a couple hours later and she can hear someone playing with her drawers. Her eyes are closed, but she can hear them like opening and closing her drawers. And at first she thinks that this is just her little brother because he would sometimes come in her room and just play with stuff. So she, without opening her eyes, says, "Stop, Adam, what are you doing?" But no one responds. So she opens up her eyes and she doesn't see anyone. She's like, okay, that's weird. So she ends up drifting back off to sleep. This part is, she wakes up again for the third time, paralyzed. She had left her door slightly open, so she opens up her eyes and she looks in the doorway and she sees this tall, slender figure wearing her baby brother's clothes when he was 1 year old, imitating her little brother's voice, calling out for her to come play with him. She said that this scared her so badly. It was one of the most terrifying things that she had ever gone through. She literally thought she was going crazy. She said the worst thing about this was that after this happened, for a long period of time, she would repeatedly catch her little brother, who was 3 years old, by the way, staring in the mirror, just talking to himself, laughing, acting like somebody was on the other side and he was playing with that thing or whatever it was, but he was staring at himself constantly, just laughing. He would do this in her room though. Like he would go into her room and just stand in front of her mirror for hours at a time, just laughing and touching the mirror, just talking to himself. She did say that suddenly things did go back to normal and she's not sure why it stopped, but that it did eventually stop and that she's so glad because it was the scariest experience that she had ever had. I'm so sorry, you guys. The story was so long. I have no time for anything. Please leave your thoughts, suggestions, comments like down below. But as always, please be respectful. I would love to know what you think about this story. What do you think this was? And what do you think her little brother was doing? Love you so much. Keep sending me your scary stories and have a spooky night. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
Hey, if it is nighttime and you're watching this video, I suggest maybe saving it for later or scrolling because we're about to get a little spooky here. How to tell if something is a human spirit or something pretending to be. Honestly, I wish it was that easy. I feel like more commonly seen for me is actually human spirits pretending to be something that they're not. Spirits that have not crossed into the light can morph themselves to look however they want and distort and lie about who and what they are. So sometimes we see things that we think are demons or these scary entities, but really it is a angry or negative person who was passed on that now wants to feed off the fear of others by distorting themselves and trying to become as scary as possible. And sometimes, just like Pennywise, they know your fears, and so they can mimic it, including like if you watch a scary movie and then all of a sudden you start seeing whatever it was that spooked you in there. That happened to me a lot as a kid, and even now because I love scary movies, and I think that they know that. But it's not always super easy to tell if something is human or not. I feel like for me, they have almost a different frequency / vibration. It's almost like something I can more feel than it is like some crazy like sign that they're holding that's like, I'm human or I'm not. I do know with things like actual demons, and those are not just like something scaring you, that is something that tries to affect you physically. It will drain you, and a lot of times with demons, they hide themselves to feed off of you before they ever actually make their presence known. That's when you're starting to spiral into a depression, starting to get very unsafe thoughts. They want to be the end of you. It is not something that's just trying to scare you. That is something that's trying to destroy and take your life. I hope that helps.
Pretty sure someone or something tried to steal this woman's baby after she went into Ocala National Forest. This woman went hiking in the forest with her husband and her baby that was only a few months old at the time. She has the baby in a carrier on her front, and all of a sudden they start hearing rustling to the left of the trail while they are walking. She said it sounded like something with two legs was walking parallel to the trail, but they also started to hear weird grunting and screeching noises. Her husband is trying to calm her down, saying it's just an animal, don't worry about it, let's just keep walking, but her mother's intuition is telling her something is wrong and she wants to turn around. Finally convinces her to keep walking, and they reach this area where like they're still on a trail, but there's a clearing to their right where she can see the sunlight coming through the leaves is like making this weird mirage. And she's standing there looking at it for a second, and suddenly she hears her name whispered right behind her. Her husband is to her left, and she hears her name whispered behind her. She spins around, nobody is there. At the same time that she heard the whisper, her baby startled and started screaming. She's like, yeah, absolutely not. We are not staying here. We need to leave. The entire walk back to their car, this woman says she feels eyes on them, and she is getting that weird feeling in her stomach like something is very wrong. When they finally get back home, she puts her baby in her crib, she puts her to bed, puts the white noise on, everything is good, and she shuts the door, and then her and her husband get ready for bed. Around 2 a.m., she wakes up gasping for breath, and she knows in that moment something is very wrong, and she starts running to her daughter's room. Her baby is not in her crib. She starts searching anywhere that she thinks her baby possibly could have fallen, could have rolled to. She cannot find her daughter. She is frantically running around the house searching for her baby, and out of some weird instinct, I guess, she throws open the front door, and she sees a lump laying in the front yard. She runs over and finds her daughter unharmed, laying in the grass of their front yard. The door was closed and locked, but even if it hadn't been, how would a few months old baby have been able to get out the front door? She said there were no signs of any forced entry, there were no broken windows, nothing. Her husband has already called the police at this point, and when they arrive, they cannot find any footprints, no signs of forced entry. Like I said, there is nothing there to indicate that somebody broke in. She still has no idea to this day how her baby ended up in the front yard at 2 a.m. when she knows damn well that she put her in her crib for the night before.
Listen to the story that I came across from a man named Simon. He titles it, I Know Now, that I don't exist. He takes a glitch in the matrix occurrence and he goes deep with it. He says that this story is absolutely terrifying to him. He's heard many encounters about aliens or ghost stories and the like, but one thing always remains common for him, and that's that it could always be explained away by something. But what happened to him, he says there is 100% zero explanation for. And that is terrifying to him. He just wants to preface with, he is a 28-year-old man from Poland. He is very healthy, no medical issues, and he is into marketing and he lives alone. He says he always chooses logic over superstition. So when this happened, it was about 11 p.m. at night and he was getting ready for the next day. And in particular, he was putting together his gym bag because he would go to the gym every other day after work. He wants to be clear that he had no alcohol. He was not tired, and very importantly, he was calm and collected. So he gets everything packed up in the bag and then he heads off to the kitchen where he had some bananas that he bought for the gym. He said that he had a bunch of bananas. It was a group of 4, all connected, and he picked them up. He broke 2 of them off, put them in the refrigerator, and then he put the other 2 in his gym bag. And then he said he went about his evening and he scrolled on his phone, and about 10 minutes later, he had a creeping thought that, you know what, those bananas might go bad quicker in the bag overnight, so he's gonna go and put them back in the refrigerator until the next morning. And to ensure that he doesn't forget them the next day, he took a piece of paper and he wrote himself a little note that just said bananas on it, and he left it on the counter to remind him. And then he went to bed. So then the next day he wakes up and he does his bathroom routine and then he heads into the kitchen and he immediately remembers, I gotta put those bananas in my bag. So he opens the refrigerator and his heart drops. He says that those bananas were back into a bunch of 4, completely connected. He picks them up and he's examining them all around and they are whole again. And he knew that this was 100% some kind of error. He said he just knew in his guts that this should be impossible. And then he slowly peels them apart and he hears the sound and he feels the sensation of them separating. And he said he just knew that yesterday's act of doing this was completely erased. That his mind was speeding down the mental checklist of all of the explanations and he had none. And then he got to the last one, which was completely eradicated when he noticed that note sitting on the countertop that said bananas. He says he 100% knows that yesterday he put them in the bag. 10 minutes later, took them out of the bag and put them back in the refrigerator and wrote himself that note. He also says they were not glued together or taped together or just sitting too close together. They were 100% intact again. He even looked around the refrigerator just to make sure that there weren't any extra bananas in there, and there were none in the refrigerator or in the entire apartment. He also says, remember, he lives alone. There would have been no outside influence, and even if someone would have broken into his apartment, he would have heard them. And then he says, and now the most terrifying part of it all. He says that immediately, and he means immediately, the moment he realized for 100% that that had happened and kind of glitched, like he doesn't live in a real world, that all of a sudden, it didn't even seem to be that big of a deal. He said he even remembers getting ready for work and he caught himself sort of forgetting about it. And then that's what sent a shiver down his spine. He said something, some unknown force, some program encoded into his bones wanted him to forget about it. He goes, like I say, I am a man of reason and I enjoy thinking about things over and over again till they make sense, thinking about what I did or what somebody said. He's like, and if something crazy or weird would have happened, he would have happily freaked out about it. But the problem for him is that he feels like it's just a waste of time. And he found himself forgetting about it during the entire work day until he was on his way to the gym. And then it kind of popped in his head all over again. And then he starts thinking about it and he says, he has definitely experienced similar glitches all throughout his life, but he kind of immediately brushes it off. And he said it's due to that exact feeling, that feeling of almost not having control over just wanting to forget about it. He goes on to say, and that feeling is even more convincing than the glitch itself. And we have no idea about what we really are or about the world we are supposedly living in. He says it might be a computer, it might be a dream. All he knows for 100% certainty is that it's not real. And then he says, even as he writes this, he feels like it's not very important at all. He says it's so not worth mentioning that probably the day after tomorrow he'll forget about all of it. And then he ends it by saying, let this story that has been written against all odds be a memento for something that is soon to be gone. That was freaking heavy. What do you guys think? I gotta know your thoughts in the comments. Kind of some existential stuff right there. I always love a good glitch in the Matrix story. So fascinated with it and never really think of it on that level though. Freaking wild. All right, if you've got your own creepy or glitchy story, I would love to hear it. And if you're new here, follow for more creepy story time.
I got an email from a girl who said that there was a demon in her house that was terrorizing her by mocking her faith and mimicking her mother. This is one of the scariest stories I've heard in a very long time. What is that? Oh well. So a little bit of background. She was about 13 years old at the time, turning 14 years old, and she lived in a small apartment. It was just her and her mom. Now, Abby has always believed in the paranormal despite her family being very Christian and religious growing up. But her and her cousin used to live at her grandmother's house, and a lot of weird stuff used to happen at their grandmother's house. Like they would hear the floors creaking at night. Nothing really too serious until she started noticing some things that were getting a little bit annoying. Like she would have something in one place and then it would just end up in another place and she would be looking for it for a while in the interim. So one day she's at her grandmother's house, right? And her entire family goes to the corner store. So it's just her in the house. Our grandmother lives in a rather small area and it's important to note that her grandmother's house is 2 stories. Well, 8 or 9 o'clock rolls around and she decides that she's going to go in her room. She's going to turn off all the lights and she's going to watch some cartoons. When suddenly she hears something coming from downstairs in the kitchen and it sounds like this rattling noise, like somebody is like fidgeting with the door handle. Well, she thinks that it's just her mom at this point. But then it continues and the door never opens. So she decides that she's just going to brush this off. She's chilling for about 5 more minutes at this point when suddenly she hears bum, 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 go up her stairs. Someone is dashing up her stairs. She said that these footsteps sounded deliberate, like they were moving with intention to do something. Now, little her is petrified at this point, but suddenly her family walks in the door, so everything's okay again. She's still scared, but her family is now there. Fast forward to when she's 13 years old. Now, her family is very religious, like I said before. They're Christian, but she does not believe in Christianity. She still doesn't to this day, and she did not back then. And I think that's a very important detail in this story. Now, despite her not being religious, she still had 3 Bibles in her room. She also had a cross above her door, and it was nailed to the door. So one night she's just chilling in her room, she's in her bed and she's on her phone and she's talking to one of her male friends before she goes to sleep. Now, after she gets off the phone with this person, she falls asleep. She falls asleep very early, around 7 a.m. She wakes up out of nowhere around 2 a.m. She is wide awake and she feels very uneasy and she's cold for some reason. She checks her phone, it's dead, and then she looks over at the window. Her window is wide open, but she never opened that window. And she said that she never kept her window open at night. Actually, never at all. So she gets up to close it, and as she's closing it, she looks back at the clock, and the clock says 2 a.m. This is when she realizes that, I guess. And for some reason, this really scared her that it was 2 a.m. So she starts to feel very uneasy, and then she starts to feel dirty and like sweaty. So she decides that she's gonna get into the shower. She gets into the shower, and she's just kind of washing herself up when she remembers hearing this sound. Now, this sound was a very weird noise. It was this whisper, and it sounded like it was whispering Bible verses. She said it sounded like a prayer. It was very hushed. And then she hears this thunk. And she's like, what was that? It sounded like something fell and it sounded like it came from her room. So she kind of freezes for a second. And after a second, she decides that she's going to get out of the shower. So she gets out of the shower and she finishes up in the bathroom. And that's when she looks over at her door, the same door that the cross was on. The cross that was nailed to her door is on the floor. This obviously really scares her. So she runs to her mom's room, only to realize that her mother is at work. And this is when it hits her. She's alone in her house by herself, and something is messing with her. She, out of pure just desperation, tries to gaslight herself a little bit. And she's like, this is just my imagination. I'm imagining this. That's it. That's all this is. She decides that she's going to take the cross, put it on her nightstand, and she's going to go lay in her bed and she's going to watch some videos. She's just watching the videos when suddenly she hears this. She looks up, and where her TV is, there's a very thin wall that connects to the living room. That's when she sees it. Something is walking across her living room, dragging their nails against the wall. She pauses the video. She just sits there. She's frozen in fear. And she looks over at her cats, and all of her cats are just staring at the wall, also frozen. She said that eventually the noises did stop, and she was eventually able to fall asleep. Again, I'll never get over it. How? She falls asleep. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, she wakes up again. She feels like something is watching her. And then she tries to move and realizes she can't move. And then she hears it. Abby. Here's what's terrifying. She wasn't having sleep paralysis. It was in her mom's voice, and the voice was behind her. And she realized that when she tried to look, she could move her head. And she looks back behind her. Something is peeking at her from the hallway into her room, looking at her. It's extremely tall, and its head is tilted like this. And its hands are just sliding up and down the wall as it's saying, Abby. Here's the thing though. Let's pretend her real name is Abigail, right? Only her mother calls her Abby. So this thing was calling her by the nickname that only her mother has given her. She said that at this point, she was so scared that all she could think to do is pray, because her mother would tell her how God protects her and that you pray when something like this happens. So she started to pray, but she said that it felt hollow because she didn't believe. So she felt like it was not working. This thing did slowly slip past the door frame and out of sight. Throughout this whole entire night, she is super paranoid and scared. She keeps hearing things rattle. She keeps hearing that scratching noise that she heard before by the TV. So at this point, she's like, I cannot go back to sleep. So she stays up that entire night until her mom gets back home. When her mom gets back home, she tells her everything. And her mom is like, okay, we're going to church. I'm taking you to church. So they go to church the next day. Her mom also prayed for her intensely. The scary thing is that every time someone prayed for her, it would hurt her. Her chest would tighten up and she would feel incredibly uncomfortable, and she was in pain. She said from there on out, she would constantly hear that prayer, like that hushed prayer outside of her bathroom door. She would constantly hear her nickname being called that her mother had given her. Things falling off of shelves, like things constantly happening, like something wanted a reaction out of her. She always follows the rules, even though she's not in Appalachia. If you see it, no you didn't. If you hear it, no you didn't. If it calls your name, you do not respond. So what do you guys think about that story? That story is one of the scariest stories I have told in a very long time. I meant that when I said that. So I believe that this was something very dark. I think that this was definitely demonic. That is my opinion. Whatever this was playing on the fact that she did not believe in God. And I think that is utterly terrifying. And it was ripping, the fact that it was able to rip a cross off of a wall, the fact that it was able to pray is scary. Like, use the words of God to scare her. That's terrifying. I wonder if it was slowly trying to possess her. Like, that's what it kind of sounds like to me. And I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Please tell me your thoughts on this. I would love to know what you think this was, how you think it was able to do all of these things. I always find it very interesting when evil things like this are able to mock, like, God, essentially. The part where it was moving its hands up and down her door and calling her by her mother's nickname, just, oh my God, that type of shit scares me. Like, sorry for swearing. That is the type of stuff that will make me I will have trouble sleeping tonight. But drop all your thoughts, opinions, suggestions down below. And as always, please be respectful. And now we're going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Laura.grace17. You said that I was your favorite storyteller. That was so sweet. I appreciate that more than you know. I get so giddy when I hear that. To be someone's favorite is so exciting to me. You have no idea. So thank you. Thank you for giving me that gift. Thank you for being in my community and supporting me and watching my videos and for commenting and leaving kind comments. It means so much to me to have you here, and I hope that you stay forever. You are the best. I love you, girl. Jenny Faye, the block one. Thank you so much for what you said. You asked if I had a podcast because you love hearing my story so much. Soon. As soon as I am not crazy with work, which should hopefully be by the summer, I am going to make a podcast. So hopefully by the summer, I'm hoping, if you guys want that. So thank you so much for being a part of the community. Thank you so much for asking me that. That was so sweet of you. I really appreciate you being kind and supporting me and watching my videos and liking them that much. Thank you. Thank you. You are the best. I love you, girl. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell your paranormal experiences on here or ones that you recommend to me every single night. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you so much, my spooky babies. I'll see you in the next one. spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
I've learned from living in the Appalachian Mountains my entire life that if you feel like something is watching you, more than likely there is. And with that being said, we're going to jump right into tonight's story. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachia story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Chelsea. The stories I'm about to tell you happened about 8 years ago, but it took place over the span of 2 years. When I turned 18, my best friend and I moved in together. We both felt like we were ready to start our adult lives, so we were looking for a few months for a place to rent. We finally found a house, so my best friend Caitlin went to look at it while I was at work. I told her to take pictures so I could see it when she left. After I got off work, she called me and she was so excited because of how much she loved this house. She sent me the pictures she took, and honestly, I couldn't believe the house was in our price range. It was newly renovated and had a lot of space. We both were really excited, so she texted the owner and told them we would take it, and about a month later we started to move our things in. Walking into the house for the first time, I felt uneasy, but just wrote it off as a new environment that I would have to get used to. Being that we were only 18 at the time, we really didn't have that much to unpack, and once we got most of everything put away, we ordered some pizza and sat in the living room eating and enjoying being in our new space. We lost track of time and ended up staying up until 2 a.m. just talking, so we said goodnight and both went to our rooms to get ready for bed. I was laying in bed scrolling on my phone trying to get tired to fall asleep when I heard footsteps in the hallway. I figured it was just Caitlin because the bathroom was outside of my bedroom, but then I got a text. Caitlin messaged me and said, "While you're up, can you grab me a water from the fridge?" My heart sank immediately. I called her phone, and when she answered, I asked if she was walking in the hallway going to the bathroom. She said no, she heard footsteps and thought I was up and wanted to see if I would grab her a water. I told her that definitely wasn't me because I'm laying in bed right now. We both got a little spooked, so Caitlin came to my room to sleep with me that night. We did check the house and there was no one there, so we just figured it was the house settling. A few months go by with no incident. Caitlin had to go out of town with her parents for the weekend, so I was at the house all by myself. But things had been going good, so I really wasn't worried. The first night by myself, everything was great. I enjoyed being alone and was able to get some things done around the house, but the second night was completely different. That day I was out of the house at work and stopped by to see my parents after work, so I got home around 10 p.m. As soon as I walked in, I got really paranoid that someone was in there with me, watching me. I turned on every light in the house and it made me feel a little better. I took a shower and went to lay down, but the feeling of someone watching me came back. I turned the TV on to try to get my mind off of it, but the feeling would not go away. I had windows in my room above my bed, but the windows are not full length. They were maybe 2 feet tall and went across the top of my wall above my bed. I didn't have curtains on the windows because no one would be able to see into my room if you were standing out there, and I really loved when the moonlight would shine into my bedroom. As I'm laying there watching TV with the feeling like I'm being watched now more than ever, I stood up on my bed and peeked out of the window, but I couldn't see anything. I sat back down telling myself I'm just being paranoid. Right before I went to bed, I went to the bathroom, and when I came back in my room, I shut and locked my bedroom door just for extra precaution since I was by myself. Eventually I fall asleep, and in the morning, I opened my eyes staring directly at my bedroom door and was in complete horror. My bedroom door was unlocked and cracked open. I have never been dressed and in my car so fast. I went to my parents' house and told them what happened. My mom said I probably woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, but I didn't remember. I have never been one to not remember doing something. If I wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, which is rare, I always remember it. I ended up staying with my parents until Caitlin came back. When she came back, I told her what happened, and what she told me still sends shivers down my spine. She said that a few weeks ago she had shut her door, but when she woke up, her door was completely open. And then the next night, she shut and locked it, and when she woke up, it was completely open. She said that she thought I had come into her room in the middle of the night, but again, I rarely wake up in the middle of the night, and even if I did, I wouldn't go to her room. With this happening to both of us, we decided to do a few experiments. For the next week, we would both shut and lock our doors at night, and in the morning we would see if they were open. And of course, when we woke up, both of our doors would be open. Hers would always be fully open, but mine would only be cracked. Since this had been going on for a little bit, we honestly got to the point where we ignored it. If the worst thing that happened was our doors opening in the middle of the night, it really wasn't a big deal to us. At least that was my thought until a few months later. I had just gotten off work, but Caitlin was still at work. I went home, and again, as soon as I stepped in the house, I started feeling like I was being watched. But this time, it really freaked me out, given all the other weird things that have happened. I decided to take a shower and wait until Caitlin got home. When I got out of the shower, I was drying off when I heard the front door close. I yelled out, "Hey, I'm in the bathroom. I'll be out there in a minute." I got dressed, opened the bathroom door, but I didn't see Caitlin. I walked through the whole house and nobody was there. I looked outside and her car wasn't there either. I called her and she said she was running a little late but would be home soon. I told her that I thought she was already home because I heard the front door close and she said she hadn't been home since that morning. At this point, I didn't know if I was making it up in my head or if the front door actually did close. I went back to my bed and just sat there on my phone waiting for her to get home. As I'm sitting there, I still have this intense feeling of being watched. When you're in my room on my bed, you can look directly out of my bedroom door through the hallway into the bathroom. The doors weren't perfectly lined up, but you could see half of the bathroom while sitting on my bed. I glance up from my phone and my eyes met the door frame of the bathroom, and what I saw gives me nightmares to this day. I see half a silhouette of a man with a bent neck and his full face. My eyes locked directly on his. His eyes were wide but had a yellowish-white glow to them, not very bright, but enough to know it wasn't normal. The pure evil that I felt in that moment still haunts me. I was frozen in fear and couldn't move. That's when my bedroom door slammed shut. I was still sitting on my bed, and there was absolutely nothing that could explain what I saw in the bathroom and how my door slammed shut. I practically flew to my bedroom door, locked it, and pushed my dresser in front of it. I called Caitlin hysterically crying, telling her about what I saw, but as I was describing what I saw, I could tell she became uncomfortable. Her tone shifted from her normal bubbly personality to cold and protective. She told me to stay there and that she was coming. She got there in about 10 minutes, but to me, sitting in that room by myself with whatever that was in my bathroom felt like an eternity. I heard the door open and Caitlin's voice calling out to me. I opened my bedroom door and she came in, hugging me. I sat on the floor with her crying for a good 5 minutes before I could even talk about what happened. Once I could actually string together a sentence, she hugged me tighter and said, "It's okay. You don't have to tell me. I know what you saw, because I saw him too." She helped me grab a few things and we went to stay at my parents' house. While we were there, I asked her why she didn't tell me about seeing him, and she told me that she didn't want to scare me and that she hadn't seen him since, so she thought maybe it was a dream. There is no way that what she and I saw being the exact same thing was a dream. We stayed at my parents' house for a few days and then went back to our house. We both ended up sleeping in Caitlin's room for the next year. Things honestly were going great, and we hadn't heard or seen anything strange in a long time at that point. That was until one night Caitlin and I were laying in our bed watching TV before we went to sleep. We heard footsteps on the other end of the house in the hallway. We both looked at each other like, oh great, here we go again. We then hear what sounds like nails on glass scratching at our window. We both turn and look at our window and see the same bent-necked man with yellow-white glowing eyes staring at us. We both scream and I jump up and turn the bedroom light on. We both packed a bag as fast as we could and went and stayed with my parents, too terrified to even return back to that house. At this time, we only had a few months left of our lease, and my parents let us stay with them until we found a new place. The next place we rented was a breath of fresh air. We always felt safe there, and we stayed there for a few years. About a year ago, I was driving by that house, and it was demolished. They are almost done building an apartment building there, and all I can say is I pray that the thing that would watch us doesn't show up again. I will never forget that house and the terrifying encounters that we had, and I always check my surroundings now just to make sure there's nothing lurking and watching from the shadows. So as you know by now, last night I was going to post this episode of Tea After Midnight, but when I went to edit the video that I recorded last night, the audio was all jacked up. I'm not diving too far into it, I just know that it was super creepy when I was trying to play it back. It was super glitchy, it would come in and out. But regardless, this story freaked me out not only last night, but tonight as well. I don't know if you can tell back here, but I hung up a piece of fabric underneath my sheer curtains because This story talking about something watching them and feeling like they were being watched made me super paranoid, so I hung a piece of fabric up. Not only going through the experience yourself, but your best friend also having the same exact experiences you had. I had chills all over my body when I read Bent Neck Man with yellowish white glowing eyes. Absolutely not. Y'all are better than me, because if I would have saw that, out immediately. I don't care, I'll break my lease, that's that. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, you can email me at the email in the caption or the email that's on the screen right here. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you. I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Get ready with me while I tell you this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal experiences, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. So this happened to me during a time in my life where I had been getting really close to God. I was reading my Bible more, praying more, and weird things had already started happening around me. I've heard of this happening where you start to find faith, and all of a sudden, things, like really weird things, just start happening. Nothing too extreme, but enough that I felt like I was being watched. That night, I had been cleaning my room, like deep cleaning. Everything I owned was thrown onto my bed, and by the time I looked at the clock, it was almost midnight, and I was nowhere near done. I was exhausted, so instead of finishing, I decided I'd just sleep in my mom's room for the night, and I didn't think anything of it. But the second I laid down, something felt weird. Like when the room is too quiet and the air is just heavy. I was facing the foot of the bed when I saw it. At first, it was just a shape, a tall, dark figure standing perfectly still at the edge of the bed. Not moving, not breathing, just there. I am getting up and I am running. I'm sprinting out of there. Next to it was my mom's dresser with a mirror facing directly toward us. So I did what anyone would do. I looked at the mirror, and then I looked back at the figure. I felt my chest tighten because it wasn't in the mirror. What is that thing that people say that you should not have a mirror facing you or your bed? I know there's a thing that says that there should not be a mirror facing you, facing your bed where you're sleeping. Something about a mirror in a bedroom, or a mirror and a bed, right? The space where it should have been reflected was completely empty. But when I looked at it directly, it was there, clear as day. I remember just staring at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And the longer I looked, the more it started to change. What was once just this shadow slowly started to take on a human form. I don't like this. It grew more detailed, more real. It looked like a man, extremely tall, dressed in a clean, expensive suit. But there was something deeply wrong about him. He was smiling. No. Not a normal smile, not a friendly smile, not a comforting smile. It was sinister. Like he knew something that I didn't. And the more I focused on him, the darker he became. And it wasn't just shadow dark, but like I was looking into space. His body didn't look solid anymore. It looked endless, like a void filled with darkness. Like if I stepped into him, I wouldn't come back. And then he spoke, not loud and not with his mouth, but I heard him in my mind. He told me to come with him. Oh no. That if I joined him, he would give me everything I've ever wanted. My dream life. I remember being so tired and irritated at the time that instead of being terrified, I just told him no. I kept telling him to leave me alone over and over again. But then he started speaking again. And this time in a language I didn't understand. It sounded like he was speaking in tongues. But somehow I still knew exactly what he was saying. And right as that was happening, everything changed. It felt like my mind left my body. What? Like I was pulled somewhere else entirely. And suddenly I wasn't in the bedroom anymore. I was in something like a courtroom. It wasn't a normal courtroom. The room was massive and it was bright, almost overwhelming. And I wasn't alone. There were figures all around me. Angels, rows of them sitting like a jury. At the front of the room was God as the judge, and standing beside me was Jesus, and then I saw him again. The same entity from the bedroom. But now he was on trial. What is happening? Everything happening was being spoken in that same unknown language, but I understood every single word. The angels kept repeating that he had been warned, that he was not supposed to interfere with my life the way he just had. There was no arguing, no confusion. It was just like everything had already been decided. Jesus spoke on my behalf and God agreed, and just like that, it was over. I was back in my body, back in my bed, and the thing at the foot of the bed was gone completely, like he had never been there at all. And the craziest part, what had felt like hours, like I had been gone for so long, was only a couple of minutes. When I checked the time, it was 2, maybe 3 minutes at most. I later talked to a pastor about it, and he told me that moments like that can happen fast, that spiritual experiences, especially ones like that, don't follow normal time. But I've never experienced anything like it again, and honestly, I wouldn't ever want to.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. This series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. The necklace, per usual, you know where it's at. Now on to the story. I wrote this months ago before chemo started again. I was going to tell it myself, but I'm not camera friendly. I hope treatments are going well. My story starts out 44 years ago. Mind you, I don't think all spirits are bad. I believe there are evil things in this world, but I also believe that there are spirits to protect. When I was about 4 or 5, my parents bought an old house in Massachusetts. It sat right next to a church. The second you walk inside, you felt it. Cold, heavy, like the air didn't move right. As soon as we walked in, there was a Raggedy Ann doll that stayed near the stairs. I would raggedy run the fuck out of there, because isn't the fucking Annabelle doll a Raggedy Ann doll? Hard pass. Instantly, it became mine. I carried her everywhere. My stepfather was abusive. Fuck him. Not just beatings, SA2. I'll beat his fucking ass. I don't remember anything from before we moved into that house. Nothing. At night, I would cry and hold that doll and pray. I would beg God to send my real dad to save me. Send an angel just to help me. That is so fucking sad. One night, while I was crying, I heard a whisper. My name is Gwendolyn, child. I wasn't scared. I guess I was just too young to understand fear like that, because maybe I felt she wasn't bad. I don't know. After that, things started happening. Whenever I heard my stepfather's footsteps coming up the stairs to my room, my bedroom door would lock by itself. The house was so old that the locks didn't even work anymore, but you could hear it click. The radiator would start whistling, the lights would flicker, he would try the handle, and then he would walk away. That only happened when I was upstairs with that doll. Okay, so maybe we're cool with the doll. My bad. My fear prejudged, okay? Later, the lock on my door was physically altered. The metal bar inside was removed. The abuse got worse when my doll was not with me and more often. I really don't fucking like this. One day when I was about 7-ish, something new happened. The bathroom door opened on its own. When he came creeping up the stairs, he was always slow, and you could hear the stairs creaking under his feet. Inside the bathroom on the right was a small door that had never opened before. We tried everything to open it, but it was always stuck. But it cracked open for me. Inside was a small cubby hole. I dragged piles of old towels, clothes, whatever was on the floor, and I hid in there holding my doll. Once I was inside, the door would close on its own, and it wouldn't open again until he was gone and I could push it open easily. No one ever fixed it. I just can't explain it. When I was around 10, the doll disappeared. Just gone. But I was old enough I could leave, hide, or dissociate. Damn it, man. When I was 12, after another incident, I punched my bedroom wall until the drywall broke. Behind it, I found pearl earrings. Just there, not a box, but wrapped in a note. It said, "Today, I give myself to God. May God hold me close. My soul I give to him, Gwen." I hadn't thought about that whisper in years. That voice that so clearly said my name is Gwendolyn, child, but in that moment, I knew she was my protector. Around that same time, my best friend was sleeping over. There was a huge storm. We were idiots playing with the Ouija board. You know what? I'm gonna let this one go. Suddenly, the bathroom door slammed open and closed, and then it slammed open again into the small cubby hole door that only opened for me. We ran across the room, away from the bathroom, towards the corner of my bedroom. Yeah, that scared the hell out of us. And then boom, my window shattered. Our neighbor's house exploded. We sat in the corner in shock. My mom came from her bedroom, grabbed us, and went outside. Later, we had found out that he had built a small bomb and taken his own life because his wife took his kids and left him. A fucking bomb? When we went back days later, my friend refused to go inside. She said, "Didn't you see the shadow person in the doorway?" I hadn't, but she swore that she did. I mean, a shadow person on top of the door, opening and slamming shut and opening again. Hell no. I'm not going back either. A few months later, my stepfather come into my room again. The lights flickered, my violin fell. He started saying things about how grown and beautiful I was, etc. This makes me incredibly angry. I picked up that violin and I hit him so many times that I can't count. The bathroom door slammed open and I saw something black. Not smoke, not shadow, just dark outline. I guess that's the best way to describe her. It moved from the bathroom toward my room. And I heard, as clear as anything, breathy words, "Run now." And I did. I heard my door slam behind me. I ran to the corner store and told them to call the police. He was arrested. I was placed into foster care. A few years later, I searched out information about the house, and it used to be a nunnery. A man had unalived a nun who had lived there. At the librarian knew about the whole story and my house. She said that no one would buy that house. My stepfather got it cheap because it was haunted. So she helped me. I found old archived newspapers in the obituary. Her birth name was Gwendolyn Peters. She lost her life heroically saving others. My shock when I read that she locked him in a closet to save their lives. This one's a little bit emotional, I'm not gonna lie. The librarian told me that they hadn't found the man who did this. I don't know what people believe. I just know when I was a little girl praying for someone to save me, a hero answered. Damn! That's sad as fuck. That is sad as fuck. I am so sorry that she went through all that shit. I don't even know what to say. I really don't even know what to say. Gwen is a real one. Gwen is a fucking real one. Oh my god, I don't even know how to rate it. What do we do? I don't know. Just put Gwen as that girl in the comments and then offer words of encouragement, especially because it says that they are going through chemo, which is just makes this story even more sad. I don't know what else to say. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I'll see you all at the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
Have you ever had a prediction that came true? I was with my boyfriend at a party my brother was hosting when I was about 23. My brother introduced me to a friend and told me that he is gifted. I sat down with the guy and asked him what he saw in my future, romantically speaking. He said my current boyfriend was jealous of me and we wouldn't last as a couple. I asked if I would ever get married and have kids. He said yes, I would get married, but not have kids. The boyfriend and I only lasted another year before we broke up, and in retrospect, I can see he was jealous of me. I got married 3 years ago, and around that time, I learned I am infertile. Once when I was about 15, I had a crush on a guy, and he, oh so tragically, started dating another girl in class. I did a tarot reading about it, hoping to convince myself that their fling wouldn't last. The tarot cards very clearly pointed to marriage and a happy home life and stuff. 15 years later, those two people are happily married with kids. Someone responded to this post and said that the tarot cards predicted their future. And then OP responded, "Haha, yep, I very clearly remember being disappointed with the results of the reading because there was no way I could twist it around to mean anything other than marriage for those two people. I remember thinking, whatever, tarot is fake anyway." Well, now we know it's not. A friend and I went to a psychic when we were about 18, 19. The psychic told me my life would be uneventful, but I'd marry a much older man and I'd injure my left leg. Then she turned to my friend and said, "You're going to marry a man named Blake or Blaine, and your mother wants you to know that she's proud of you." My friend's mother had recently passed, and my friend had just started seeing a guy named Blaine. 5 years later, she married Blaine, but never told him what the psychic said. I ended up tearing a large muscle in my left leg and have been dating a guy 10 years my senior. I would be so freaking pissed if a psychic told me that my life was going to be uneventful. Not me, but my mother, so take this with a grain of salt, as it is secondhand from someone who very much believes in supernatural type stuff of this sort. She had her palms read at a university-sponsored event, probably a residential life program near Halloween. My mother was 20 at the time, engaged to my father, but their tentative wedding date was after her 21st birthday. The palm reader told her that she would marry at age 20. The palm reader didn't know her current age. My mom says that in her head, she sort of scoffed because, as I said before, her tentative wedding date was after she turned 21. However, it turned out that a few weeks later, their venue had to move the date because they had double booked it by mistake. The only weekend that worked for both families fell before my mom turned 21, so the palm reader turned out to be correct. My mom said there were a few other times that turned out to be valid, but I can't remember those specifically. I do remember one last thing, though, that stuck with me because of how potentially ominous it was. My mom says at one point the palm reader's face dropped into a frown or look of concern, and at that point the palm reader hesitated a bit in her spiel. My mom asked her what she saw, prompting the palm reader to continue, and the palm reader just shook her head and said, "There's nothing else that I can see right now." But my mom says she remembers thinking that the palm reader was withholding something. Well, my mother's second child, my older brother, passed away at age 3. And so in retelling the palm reading story, my mom wonders if the reader was able to see the tragedy, but didn't want to tell my mom about it. My young stepson's mother had just been attacked and unalived in front of him by his stepfather. When effectively orphaned, he came to live with us. To welcome him into our California home, we took him to our favorite restaurant, which was having a Renaissance feast themed dinner that night, including jugglers, musicians, costume servers, traveling magicians, and a tarot card reader. "Let's have our cards read," I suggested, and he eagerly agreed. Although his father became so upset at our silly superstitions, he actually left the restaurant. Ew. The old woman sat down at our table, and the horrifically traumatized 10-year-old boy solemnly drew his cards. The very first one turned over was the death card. The tarot reader, completely unknown to us and without any preamble, turned white and mumbled, "It can also mean new beginnings." My stepson and I just looked at each other with raised eyebrows and finished our dinner. Child later manifested a poltergeist in our suburban house and confessed that he and his mother had had a clairvoyant relationship, even in the immediate aftermath of her passing, when she came to him in an airless attic in the form of a rattling piece of cellophane seemingly blowing in non-existent wind. That was so sad, but I hope that whatever that boy was talking to was actually his mother.
Spooky story time. This is one that I read online. We're going to call this one The Believer. The writer of the story says that this incident made him 100% a believer, and it happened about 4 years ago when he was 17. His parents were divorced, so sometimes he would stay with his mom, sometimes he would stay with his dad, and this specific time he was staying at his mom's house. But mom wasn't going to stay there with him. He was going to be there all alone. So that night he goes out, goes for some pizza, and comes right back home. He wants us to know that this house is a 2-story house and the stairs are all wooden. The writer mentions that as soon as he gets home, he feels like someone is watching him, and he's like... So he goes around the whole house and tries to see, checks everything out, no one's there. He says that he goes into his bedroom, gonna go live his best life, plays some video games, closes his door, and his door is kind of like right here off to the side, so he can kind of see the door, the bottom of the door, and he realized that he left the hallway light on. And the reason why he realizes it is because he's playing the game and he swears that he can see like footsteps or shadows kind of like walking back and forth, but he sees it underneath the door. So he's like, he ignores it, keeps playing his video games. After a while he gets tired and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go to bed. So he lays down, he's getting nice and comfortable. Again, he had left the hallway light on, so he's kind of like laying on his side, closes his eyes, opens them, and realizes underneath that door are kind of like 2 feet standing right outside his door. He sees the shadows. Obviously he freaks out. He's like, oh my gosh, someone's standing outside my door. What does he do? He grabs a knife and he's just sitting there scared, like, oh my gosh, kind of waiting for them to move or like to walk or something, but they're not going anywhere. Eventually he gathers enough courage to open that door and there's nobody there. He leaves his room, kind of walks around the whole hallway to make sure again that no one's in there, no one's there. He's like, okay, I'm tired, I'm seeing things, closes the door back, lays back down, and those shadows are gone. He's freaked out enough that he decides, you know what, forget this, leaves his door open, decides that he's gonna sleep with the door open and the light on. After a while, he's just so freaked out, he's like, yeah, I can't sleep. So he gets on his phone and starts watching some YouTube. As he's there watching videos for a little bit, he hears what sounds like large footsteps going up the stairs. Again, he said that these stairs are wooden, so he hears like the creaking of the stairs. This time he's freaked out because he's like, someone is definitely inside this house. So he grabs his phone, grabs the knife, runs into his restroom, locks the door, and calls 911. Operator answers. Like I said, he's freaked out at this point. He's like, oh my gosh, someone's in here, but his voice is shaking. He's even whispering because he's afraid that whoever is out there is going to hear him. The operator stays on the phone with him, tells him, okay, we're sending out a policeman. They're going to go check out your house. They get there, they check everything, nothing's there. They swept the entire house, nothing. Him by himself, alone in that house. Next day, he starts telling his mom what happened. Like, Mom, this is what I heard, this is what I saw. I called the police, they came and they checked, they didn't see anything. So both him and Mom kind of walk around the whole house to see if they missed anything, if the policeman missed anything. And they sure did. They realized that the only opening to the attic of that house was in his room in the closet. And the lid is open. He swears, he tells his mom, he's like, I love you, Mom, but I am not staying in this house anymore. Like, I've seen what I had to see. I've heard everything that I needed to hear, and I'm out. So he vouches and says that he's never going to stay at his mom's ever again because this incident freaked him out. The worst part is that Mama was curious and decided to text the previous owners and was like, hey, my son was here alone one day and this happened. This is what he heard. Do you know anything about this? Well, the previous owner was the daughter of the owners of that house. Her father built that house. They lived there. That was her childhood home. And she said that her dad passed away in that bedroom, in his room, in her son's room. Like, the writer says that this is all he needed to know. Again, never staying there ever again. And he says that this is the one incident that made him a complete believer because he was one of the most skeptical people when it came to paranormal. What do you think? I think that you got me fucked up. I agree with him. Never staying in that house again. Thank you so much.
Hey divas! Do you like the change of scenery? It's a bathroom. But just a quick question. How in the big year 2026, at your big age of 30, do you not understand that no means no and is a complete sentence? Huh? So I'm in Lisbon right now and I've been having the time of my life. I am solo traveling and I've met so many cool people, so many friendships that I want to entertain in the future. It's so special to have friends in different corners of the world. But last night, me and my friend from Argentina decided to go on the pub crawl. Now, typically, I don't do that. It feels very touristy. I like to do things outside of the hostel so I can actually see the culture and not just the culture that other people are bringing to the country, if that makes sense. But I was like, you know what? Why not? Prior to this, I got a tattoo for 3 hours. I walked up 30 flights of stairs. Do you know how big my calves are going to be? Pretty much every day I've been here, I wake up and I just go outside and I walk around and I follow the music or I follow the colors and see where I end up, and it seems to go great. So going into this pub crawl, I was already a little, delusional, especially because they start their night out here at like midnight. So it was a long day. And if you're my dad, this is your sign to stop watching the video now because you are not gonna like what I have to say next. So we all went out, I had my little girly pop group. We were having a great time dancing at different clubs, bars. Listen, I enjoy a casual smooch with a stranger every once in a while. Sue me. God forbid a girl has fun. My group was all girls. We had like 5 or 6 girls, and then this guy comes up and starts dancing with me, and I'm talking to the girly pops and I'm like, should I go for it? Is he cute? And they're like, yeah, girly pop. And so we have a little smooch on the dance floor, okay? Now, he was with our group, but not staying at our hostel, but I thought he was staying at our hostel. And I made it so clear the entire night that I did not want anything more. I did not want to go home with this person. I did not want this person in my bunk bed. I just wanted a little fun and then to dance with the girlies. And so, around 4:30 in the morning, the normal time to go to bed, we all decided to Uber back to the hostel because it was a very long walk and we were all exhausted. It was also pouring. Normally, I'm one to just power through, but man, oh man, I was beat. And so we ordered this Uber with all of us girly pops and he gets in. So I'm assuming he's going to the same hostel we are. He's staying there, right? And so we get to this hostel and my hostel pretty sick. So right when you go into reception, there's a bar, lounge area where you can sit, hang out. And we're all having the time of our lives, bonding. So we're like, why don't we just sit down and have a glass of wine? What could go wrong? Now, he was being really touchy all night, and that wasn't what was bothering me. What was bothering me is the entire night he kept trying to pull me away from everyone. Like, would actively, physically grab me and pull me away while I'm dancing with the girl. I just want to dance with the girls. I want, the smooch is a side quest, not the main quest. And so he sits next to me and he's being very touchy. And then all of a sudden he goes, can you walk me to the door? I don't know how to get out of here. Because my hostel's a little confusing, I get it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so we leave the reception area and he immediately pulls me into the locked girls' bathroom and locks the door behind him. And I want to just start out by saying I'm 100% okay, but I am going to post a list of trigger warnings because I know this can be triggering for some people. Now, mind you, this hostel is very, very safe. They really make it a point to make sure everyone feels safe, that there's a women's bathroom, that there's a men's bathroom, only your key card can get in. I honestly don't know how he opened the door or if it was just slightly ajar. And all of a sudden I can't move. All of a sudden he's just right there, just pushing me up against the wall. And I want to clarify something. I said so many times, no, I don't want this. This is inappropriate. This is supposed to be a safe space for women. No, 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 no. I'm not going to get into the details of what he particularly did, but it was definitely not what I wanted, and I unfortunately wasn't able to move because my arms were pinned. And it wasn't until I got loud and said, no, I don't want this, that he finally backed away because I'm assuming he thought someone would hear. So I dart out and I walk to reception, and I don't even know what I was walking to reception for, but as soon as I look at the reception, I just start bawling, which feels so embarrassing. Like I was sobbing manically. All of my eyelashes fell off. And the moment reception saw me, they were super on top of it. They were like, what happened? Who did it? Do you need anything? Let's step away. What's gonna make you feel safe? And one of the employees stepped outside with me so I could get away from the situation. And he was like, hey, I know this is really hard, but we need to know what happened. So I told them, I cried in the hostel workers' arms as I was trying to calm myself down. And they even talked about filing a police report. And I was like, I'm already dealing with an assault case in the States as well as a lawsuit. I can't handle another police case in another country. And they were like, yeah, no worries, don't worry about it. We're gonna make sure you're okay. Just stay here for a little bit. We'll make sure you're safe. We're gonna figure out where this guy is and we're gonna make sure this never happens again. And oh my God, these hostel workers deserve an award for their FBI work because they found out every detail about this guy. And he was not even staying in my hostel. He was staying in a neighboring hostel. This morning I woke up and reception was really kind and they were like, hey, we just want to check in on you. Are you okay? Are you able to swing by so we can update you about some things? So I swung by and they told me that he was banned from every hostel in Lisbon. And of course, because women are trained to apologize for someone else's wrongdoings, I'm apologizing profusely for this chaos, for this mess. And the girl looks at me and goes, your safety is not a privilege. It's a given. We're gonna make sure you have that safety. What he did is not okay. No means no. And shortly after that, one of the girls I was dancing with messaged me and was like, hey, just wanted to check and make sure everything was okay. You kind of just disappeared last night, which is so nice. She's still checking even though she's in another country. And I say, yeah, here's the situation. And apparently she already had a bad feeling that something happened. So she gave reception a picture of the guy that we had taken that night. And you wanna know what else she told me? He did the same exact thing to her after I left. He pulled her into this same exact bathroom, even though she said no multiple times. At the end of the day, everyone is safe. It was a chaotic night and I have a lot more stories from it, but no means no. What do you not get about that?
So I have another creepy story to tell. This one is from when I was like really young, and then also kind of was brought up again like whenever I was like 15 or 16. So whenever I was little, my family lived behind my grandparents' house. And so whenever like summer break would be going on and, you know, I was out of school, mom would go to work and she would leave at like 5 o'clock, but she would get me up and take me over to their house because they would babysit me. And so I would always like get in bed between them and just go back to sleep. Well, probably around, I don't know, 6:30 or 7, like they would get up and they would go, like Papa would go work on his cars, Granny would go out to her garden, and they would just leave me in bed because like, why would they wake me up to go out and do that? So they would just let me sleep and they would come back in and check on me. And
Anyway, so one morning that had happened, and I was laying in bed. They had gotten up and went wherever. When I woke up, there was this really tall man in the corner of the room wearing suspenders. Like, I could still tell you to this day, like, he was wearing suspenders. He was wearing one of those old Mac hats, and he was literally so tall, like 7 foot tall, and he was a big guy. Like, he was a big guy. And I remember seeing him, and I was like, you know, like, I rubbed my eyes and like I looked again. He was still there, and then like I closed my eyes again, opened them again, and he was gone. The third time he was gone. And so to me, like, of course that's strange, you know, but he wasn't like scary. He was just standing there and just looked like me or you. But in my mind, I was like, well, that's weird. But also, like, as a kid, I saw so many weird things. Like, I've always been like that. Like, I see weird stuff. And anyway, so I moved on with my life, and Brandy distracted me. Anyway, so I moved on with my life, and I kind of forgot about it, you know, as I got older. But there was one day I was over at my granny's, and she was like cleaning out some of her stuff, and she opened this old like scrapbook, or she was going through like a picture album or something, and he was in it. The guy was in it. And I was like, at this point, you know, 15 or 16, I was like, who is that? And she said, oh, that's your papa's dad, Garrett. And I was like, I've seen him before, right? And she was like, no, you never met him. He died like way before you were born. And I was like, no, I've seen him before in the corner of this room. I've seen him, like, he's standing there. And so my granny, like, she just goes completely pale, and she yells for my papa. She was like, Vernon, and yells for him. And so he comes running in there or whatever. And she was like, I want you to tell your papa what you just told me. And so I told him, like, whenever I was little, and, you know, I used to come over here and I would sleep in between, and you guys would go. I saw him in the corner of the room, and my papa started laughing, and he was like, yeah, he does that sometimes. So he had also saw his dad in the corner of the room in the same place, wearing the same exact thing, because apparently he always wore the suspenders with the Mac hat and, you know, whatever. He always wore that. So I thought that was really interesting. So that's why I said, like, it might not be that scary, not really a scary story, but it is interesting, and kind of cool that, like, I never met him, but for some reason he was just standing there that day. I don't know.
How would you feel if you started taking a sleeping medication that gave you horrifically vivid hallucinations? Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into it. This happened in 2013, maybe 2014, and I was 10 or 11. I had a hard time sleeping for a while, so I was put on a new sleeping medication. I only took it for about 2 days. I would sleep in the dark with my door open. My first mistake. My grandfather on my dad's side had passed away a week or so prior to this event. The first night I took the medication, I woke up around 3 a.m. and looked at my entertainment center that was in front of my bed. I saw a shadow hunched over, walking very slowly. It stopped, looked at me, and then disappeared. I had school that day, so I just turned on my TV and waited for my mom to tell me to get ready for school. I didn't think much of it for the rest of the day. The second night, I took the medication again and went to bed. I woke up again around 3 a.m. and heard footsteps in the hallway, so I covered my head. I thought it was my grandmother on my mom's side coming back upstairs from smoking a cigarette, we live with them, and going back to her room. Her room is right across from mine. My room was set up so that when you walked in the door, my bed was immediately to your left against the wall. The entertainment center and TV were on the opposite wall directly in front of the foot of my bed. After I thought my grandma had gone back into her room, I uncovered my head and looked toward the entertainment center. That's when I saw the face of my grandfather on my dad's side. It was from the top of the shoulders up, just looking at me. There was blood running down his face, and he was wearing the same shirt we buried him in. It was a blue and red plaid shirt. Mind you, he didn't die from anything that would have made him have blood on him. So I just stared at it, not wanting to make any sudden moves because I didn't want it to come toward me or anything. After what felt like forever, it moved diagonally into my ceiling. When it did, my ceiling rippled like water. When that happened, I slowly got up and went to my grandparents' room to sleep with them for the rest of the night. Some things had also happened to my family before this, like being held down, and some weird things have happened after this as well. Nothing like this though. just my ceiling fan moving on its own and things falling. That is so terrifying, and the fact of it being a result of something that's supposed to be a comfort to you and help you. Thank you, Haley, for sending me your story. I'm hopeful that you're feeling better now. If you want to send me your scary story, you can email it to lidslunacy@gmail.com. Mothman's crochet pattern is on my Etsy. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
I swear to God, I just made a video about how I'm moving down here and I wish I was making this up. This is the guest room and nobody else is home right now, and you can hear the alarm in here going off. Like, I wish I was joking. And the clock isn't even right. It would not shock me if that clock went off again in like 30 minutes, and not because it's like snoozed, but because it just does that. It is the first time that I had that door closed, which is super weird. I'm gonna go upstairs. I'm not gonna work down here anymore. Sorry for my appearance. It is the next day, different time. I am currently working in my office upstairs, and I can hear this effing alarm through the vents again. Again, no one else is home. I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear it. Now that it's hours later and I've had time to kind of process everything, I still don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because it's an old clock. I don't know what it is, but it has recently started since I've been working down in the basement. And normally, I don't know if I explained this earlier in the video, but it usually plays white noise, and I don't know when it started going off as an alarm. And something is telling me that it is the room itself, because I have had issues with that room since I've lived here. But yeah, in short, I don't know what it is, and I don't want to know.
We even asked the people around us, and they said that it wasn't them. Did you hear that? Okay, anyways, I think I need to stop. But yeah, so be careful out there. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop.
Y'all, it's Jordan, or as you might know me as Y Jordy, the submechanophobia girl. So a lot of people ask me where my submechanophobia came from, and I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again because it was a long time ago that I told it. So I went to SeaWorld in 1999 when I was 8 years old. Yes, I am Unk. We went through the Great White Ride, which is a roller coaster there in San Antonio. So back then, you had to go through this tunnel to actually get to the ride. The building still exists, and it's this big round building that has a shark on it. And you used to have to go through that building to get to the line for the ride. Now, in this building, there was a shark tank. It was but you can barely see it, right? There were like little windows. There were like, I think 3 windows. I want to say like 3 feet by 2 feet. They were not big windows, but they were looking into this shark tank that had little reef sharks in it, right? And in this shark tank was a massive fake blue whale head. Just the head staring at you through the glass. I was 8 years old. Up until then, whales were my favorite thing. I was obsessed with whales. They were literally my favorite thing in the world. We did the adopt a whale program all the time. I went to SeaWorld to see orcas for the first time because I was obsessed with orcas. Free Willy was one of my favorite movies. After I saw that, I have been traumatized and scared of whales literally ever since, and scared of submechanophobia type things. Now, I've always had the phobia of pipes also. So pipes underwater also fits into the submechanophobia. I think we're born with our phobias. I think we just realize that we have them when we see things, because other people weren't scared of that. Also, if you know anybody that worked at SeaWorld in 1999, around that time, I would love to see a photo of this whale. I have been looking for photos of this whale. I have been posting on Reddit for years, literally over a decade, trying to find photos of this whale. I've even emailed San Antonio SeaWorld because I will not go there. I will not spend money at SeaWorld because fuck SeaWorld. I have tried to reach out to everybody, and nobody has proof or corroboration that this whale existed, and it is driving me nuts because I know it existed. It started my phobia. So what started your submechanophobia, if I may ask, if you have it? Hopefully it's not my videos. Hopefully my videos haven't traumatized people. But I just want you to know that if you suffer from this phobia, a lot of people will make fun of you. I've been made fun of for it my entire life. Most people like, oh, if you're scared of spiders or snakes, like, oh, that's a acceptable phobia. But if you're scared of submechanophobia, man-made things underwater, or whales or something like that, you're crazy. You're seen as weird, which I don't understand. People will just bully you for absolutely no reason. But you're not alone. I love you and I am here for you. And that's a big reason why I make my videos, is to show people that you're not alone. Because I know what it feels like to be alone. I'm autistic. I'm ADHD. I am very, very neurodivergent. I know what it feels like to be alone and to have this phobia and be made fun of my entire life for it. There are also some other phobias that I have that I will never post online, ever, because they scare me more than the submechanophobia stuff, and I will never tell anyone what they are. And that's not me fishing for people to ask, because I will literally never share them. The only people that know about the other phobias that I have are my very, very close family, because I do not trust the internet to know, because I will be bombarded with photos of the phobia, and I can handle the submechanophobia videos and photos. It freaks me out. It has like a guttural, like the stomach drop feeling whenever you're on a roller coaster when I see the submechanophobia stuff. But the actual phobia stuff that I have, well, you know, the other really weird phobia that I have, I will never share online because it is guttural. I will not be able to eat if I look at the thing that I'm actually scared of. So, yeah. Do you have any really weird phobias? Let me know. And you're not alone. I love you. Toodles.
Story time on when me and my cousin found out that her new husband was an unaliver. Yeah. So I want to give a trigger warning to this story. If you are sensitive to topics that talk about DV and things of that nature, please keep scrolling. I don't know what all I can say on here, but I surely do not want to trigger or offend anyone that's watching. So let's get into the story. We're going to call my cousin Jada, and we're going to call her husband Ryan. Okay? This is a true story, and I'm going to be very mindful of how I word things. Me and Jada were never really close. She was 10 years older than me. She lived states away. So we never, it's like we knew each other in passing. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, about 2019, Jada ended up moving nearby where I'm at. So we ended up linking up, connecting, and all the things. I would go over to her house almost every day, and we got super close, y'all. Like, we got close. We were going out, having drinks, doing girl days, and before you knew it, I was spending nights at Jada's house because Ryan worked overnight, and Jada was scared there in that big old house all by herself. So, yeah. From the outside looking in, and even from my perspective, Ryan seemed like the perfect guy. Like, he was kind of quiet. He was very laid back, handsome guy. Yeah, and around me, he treated Jada like a queen. And he was very respectful to me. But, yeah. Anyway, soon I became Jada's listening ear. I was the shoulder that Jada cried on. And that's when I started finding out that things were not so great behind those double closed doors. Okay? So she started telling me about things that Ryan had done. And this was prior to them moving and all of that. And I was like, girl, did you not like, you know, she jumped into this really fast. And, you know, she felt like she fell in love, and it is what it is. Anyway,
I was like, girl, did you do any background check? Did you talk to his family? You know, like, and she was like, yeah. She was like, his mom said that he had some anger issues from childhood that stemmed from childhood, whatever. She made it seem like it wasn't the biggest deal. Like I said, Jada made it seem like it wasn't a big deal, and he just had some anger issues from childhood that stemmed from childhood. So whatever. Time went on, and the more time that went on, the more Ryan just showed his true colors. I mean, he couldn't hide who he truly was. One night, I was staying the night with Jada, and by this time, I had realized that she just didn't want me there because she didn't want to be alone, or she was scared in that big house. She was scared of him. She shared with me that night some of the things that were going on, and she also shared with me that Ryan said he no longer liked me because he felt like me and her talked about him. Anyway, I was in harm's way right along with her and had been this entire time, which is why I'm telling y'all this story. This is the night that I got Ryan's full name and looked him up. And when I looked him up, I saw a story from 10 years prior where Ryan had did something to a young man that caused him not to be here with us anymore.